Okay, we're back again.
How you doing,
Uh,
Drew?
good, good.
Good.
The idea of the podcast is, life and leadership conversations that go deeper. And Steve and I have been walking, hopefully, along with some people listening to the podcast and getting down. I think for me, the idea, the core is just the idea of getting down core principles that hopefully people who are interested in coaching can use, clients can use around this content. And then we've been on I for this whole season, the idea of, identity. What is our
Right.
identity and how do we know what that looks like? We finally are, when we go back to that three circles diagram, we discussed in detail the false identities that are the outer circle, the unwanted identities in the next circle in, and finally, we're really going to camp on our true self, our true identity. And
Right.
it's not always easy for us because the world and our brain chemistry gets in the way of really unpacking that. So we took it upon ourselves to kind of go through a document that I've created over the years of all these different exercises to help get clarity around what our values are. And those values are words that jump out on the page at us. They're not necessarily like strengths, which you and I knowing you and you knowing me, probably like a strength might be, oh, Steve and Drew are trustworthy.
Yeah.
Well, that's great if trustworthiness is a word that jumps out on the page at you and says, wow, that takes your heart away when you see trustworthiness in each other. That can be a strength, but it's not a value of ours necessarily. So we're going to start to unpack our experience through this document of value clarification and unpack what are our discoveries. And hopefully that will help others to know the process and the pitfalls and the clarification that we all need to get a better read on. If I am clear on my values, then I use them as a lens to see the world and as a way to make sure that we're honoring them and we're walking in them. Because as Daniel Harkavy lovely says, leadership is the decisions we make and the influence we have.
Yeah.
And if we make decisions and influence people from that lens, from our true self identity, that's our calling. That's why we're here.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
cool. You're just you're gonna get it raw from me. I've gone through the spreadsheet, and you're gonna get some true authenticity and some rawness. And I think that, we'll end up working it through on the podcast even. So it'll be good for the people listening to see, hey, here's the raw data coming in, and here's how they work through it. Yeah.
Well, lovely, and you and me both, because I
Yeah.
kind of looked at my decades of development of values and kind of re scrapped the whole thing and re-looked at it. Um, and so I think we're going to go through that process. What else to think about um, before we get started? Any other thoughts as we initially jump in?
No, I'm ready to jump in. I can hardly wait to, I get the pre-read and the listeners don't, but I love some of your quotes, so I can hardly wait for us to get into
Oh,
that section.
well, yeah, we could share some quotes, but the other thing that I wanted to keep in mind is this is hard work.
Yeah.
It's fun, I hope, for
Yeah.
us,
Yeah.
but I find clients get stuck on here, client, go do a business vision document that we've already created and go have at it.
Yeah.
Or here, client, let's have you work on a life plan. Or here, client, let's have you take this document and try to take time out of your busy schedule to get clarity around
Yeah.
what's my Steveness, what's my
Yeah.
Drewness, what
Yeah.
does this all look like?
Yeah.
And it's a big ask because I think our culture is so fast moving now, and it's a 24/7 clock now, and there's not enough time in the day to do what we believe are the important things.
Yeah.
when in reality, they probably aren't.
Yeah.
As you and I are both old enough and kind of retired enough to see that.
Yeah.
I mean, my wife and I were driving home on the freeway from a trip, and we both looked at each other and said, wow, the amount of traffic during rush hour and the amount of people in their cars spending 2 or 3 hours a day in the car commuting from work. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of crazy what we
Agree.
say is important and what we do
Exactly.
to fill our time. And I think arguably this time is well spent to get
For
clarity
sure.
around what really brings us alive and what how we can lead better.
I totally agree. The way you said that, of talking about doing the business plans and the visions and et cetera, without having done this work up front, it's a little bit ready, fire, aim to me. It's you can't lead authentically until you've really done this work. And therefore you can't put together a vision, you can't put together a business plan unless you really know yourself and where your values are. Because if you're trying to lead from some other set of values, it becomes fake, and everybody can read, everybody in the room can read it, right? It's a
Yeah.
pretty straight putt. He's coming from a fake position. And when you have your values in front of you and you figured out who you really are, then you can lead authentically. Yeah.
And I say this a lot, but it's this slowing down to speed up.
Yeah.
I mean, taking the time to do a life plan, taking the time to do a business vision, taking the time to do your own business. This is what we're talking
Yeah.
about, our
Yeah.
own business vision, the idea of what
Yeah.
are our
Yeah.
values.
Yeah.
It takes time, but
Yeah.
if you have it, it speeds up your ability to lead.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Japanese have a saying, slowly, slowly, we don't have any time. And
Mm,
it's a beautiful, almost proverb in Japanese that just,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I love that. I'll look at a few quotes, and if you have one or two that you love,
yeah,
jump in. But
yeah,
these quotes are all kind of about true self and the discovery. One of them, just I'm looking at, is to excavate the essence of who we are, our true self. We have to dig through a lot of mud to unearth buried treasure. We have to get our hands dirty and dig deep into our soul. There's no other way to get there.
yeah, absolutely. Spot on.
Yeah.
Spot on.
The other one I'll share is the measure of a person, a hero, is how well they succeed at being who they are, which is from Marvel movie with Thor in it. I think it's Frida, Thor's
Free.
mom. The measure of a person, a hero, is how well they succeed at being who they are. That's what
Yeah,
we're talking about,
yeah,
is figuring out who we are and then just stay in that lane.
exactly. The one I love that you had on there was it Viktor Frankl. Every Everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life. Everyone must carry out a concrete assignment that demands fulfillment. Therein, he cannot be replaced, nor can his life be um, repeated. I mean, to me, there's a there's two things in there that just hit me in the soul, and that is one, I was blessed and lucky to do a job, if you will, or have a career that I felt like I was born to do.
Mm.
So I felt really blessed that way. And there's a little bit of Jimmy Stewart and It's a Wonderful Life. You don't know the impact and the effect that you're having on everybody else, but when you're that true self, you're that you're fitting in that space in the world that you're designed to fit in. In the world, even though they may not make monuments to you in the future, you're just such a key piece of the way the world is working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautifully said. The other thing that's interesting around our value conversation, maybe we start here, is that I'm a big fan of Brene Brown's work, and she just came out with a new book, and she has uh, she re kindled her Dare to Lead podcast and is interviewed with Adam Grant, who's a professor out of Wharton Business School, and they're buddies, and they talk it up about the different parts of the book. But one part they talk about is her section of the book that she talks about values
Right.
and the importance of them. And the thing that popped up was one, she's a big believer, as am I, that, one, two, or three. Don't get more than three.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
that oftentimes we have five, six, or seven. This is also indicative of, the businesses have six or seven. I think if you get one, two, or three, most of the other ones will fall under the category of the top two or three. So I thought that was really a helpful reminder.
okay. So this is where they get to see the full transparency is that I think the first exercise that I was working on, or second exercise, I can't remember, second one, I was like, there was one core value, and when we get into it, it just hit me really hard, and I couldn't see anything else for a long time. I was like,
Nice.
man, I'm gonna go into this, and Drew's gonna think I just screwed around, not put any time and effort into it, because I've only got one value that hits me, and then I ended up working through the worksheet, and I put one more in there, but that was it. I got two.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's because you've done the work. And ironically, I come into this the opposite direction where I've done all the work. I've got these dozens and dozens of values that are all, and I was like, okay, for this conversation, I'm gonna relook at everything. And I coalesced it into three.
okay.
And so I had the same kind of experience. Like, is there only three? And maybe there's even less, but I, like you, kind of like looked at this and went, wow, there's maybe this all fits into
Yeah,
these three buckets.
yeah.
Um, with that in mind, you already shared with me your one, and it's linked to that outer circle. So I wanted you to unpack that a little bit.
um Trying to remember which one it was, but
The pleaser and the
yeah,
altruism and the yeah.
yeah. So I guess maybe it's down to three right now, but altruism came up as one of my big things. And there's I don't know how it got shaped in my life, but it got certainly got shaped in my life of, you know, the greater good, sacrificing for the greater good, looking at the greater good. Um, and it showed up in exercise two of, it's interesting you use the thing on traffic because that's one of the things that really ticks me off, but the selfish people on the road cutting people off, trying to get to the exit first. And yeah, there's probably some people who have emergencies, but the percentage is not that high. But that altruism just hit me as, this is a core value that I have of self-sacrifice, doing the right thing for the team. For me, being part of a team was absolutely huge and being a contributor to a team, but it plays right against my saboteur of being a pleaser.
Mm.
Um, and I'm kind of was stuck in well, is it my pleaser with this value, or is this the value that's feeding the pleaser? And I think, on self-reflection, it's the altruism is my true self. Um, but the pleaser can ratchet it up to a point where it's not healthy, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Well, it makes beautiful sense. And this is not unusual when I go through this work with clients, is it's this, and they don't like my answer, but my answer is going to be the same. It's an energy thing
Yeah.
because, my largest, loudest saboteur is hyper rational. And one of my key values is inspiration.
Yeah.
Well, if they are, they can be cousins, but they're also opposites. And
Yeah.
the energy you get when you are in pleaser mode, for example, pleaser might be conditional love. Like,
Yes.
let me do stuff for you so that you are pleased by me, that you
Right.
see me as lovable. That's a very different energy than altruism, which is on the other side of the spectrum of this is unconditional love. This is love out of the joy of showing up
Yeah.
unconditionally. And so
Yeah.
one is fear and me, and the
Yep.
other one is love and we.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And I can bounce back between those two things. Now that you've described it that way, there's times where it is altruism, and there are times when it is the pleaser. I can
Yeah.
think of numerous times in my family experience growing up where it was the pleaser who showed up and not the altruism. And there are
Yeah.
times in my family life where I can think of where, altruism showed up and not trying to please somebody or get something out of it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I say it's energy, it's like when the saboteur's in the room, there's an emotion and an energy that's probably negative.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
feels heavy lifting. It's stressful. I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
The traffic is congested and I'm feeling that's the saboteur
Yeah.
voice.
Yeah.
If it feels in flow, losing track of time when I'm doing it, all those other, happiness, elation, joy, guess what?
Then you're in
That's
the right place.
probably aligned with your other one, with
Yeah.
the value.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so. And
Yeah.
it's one's an energy drain and the other one's an energy booster, right?
Yeah.
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 Okay. Let's start and we'll just maybe just go down the line and talk about each of the exercises and see what we got out of them. So the value exercise number one is something we call peak experience. Uh, and it's describing a powerful event in your life. And it's funny that this course, when we at Building Champions, we have a pre-work little form to fill out for our clients. And the first question is, greatest victory since last call.
Yeah.
And I oftentimes, if it's a big one, I will pause and intentionally say, tell me about this greatest victory, unpack it for me a little bit. And what I'm listening for that person's values showing up because oftentimes when we think about a peak experience in our life, our values are percolating and showing up,
Right.
but we're just not aware of it.
Right.
Um, what's your thoughts on this first exercise?
Um, I really liked the exercise. It forced me to um, kind of go back in my history and kind of think of a place that ended up really kind of defining my career.
Hmm.
And I was trying to think, how do I tell this story without, getting subpoenaed at the same time? But but let's just say I was working for a large aerospace manufacturer. Um, and we had introduced some new technology. It wasn't necessarily under my watch at that time, but it didn't work. It wasn't working. It wasn't working. And the guy who was in charge of it kind of left his position. And I, as a 26-year-old kid, walked into it and was like, okay, you got to lead this and you got to get it done. And we had to um, work with the supplier, work with our customers to develop a plan to get this thing fixed in 3 months. I mean, it
Hmm.
was kind of crisis mode. It was, we got to get it fixed, we got to get it done right. I got in and it was like, okay, everything for the team right now, guys. This is the team thing, but we're going to get in. We got our, here's this how we're going to get organized. This is what we're going to do. Um, there was a couple of times where I had to actually go out to a couple of our customers and talk to them. And, I
Hmm.
remember going in with the head of maintenance and he read me the absolute riot act. And I looked at him, I said, we're going to get this thing fixed. We've got a plan. We're going to get it fixed. We're going to be done by this time. Um, we're going to get this in place. And he was probably in his 50s and I was about 26 and I was scared as all heck when it happened.
Hmm.
I was absolutely, I was deer in the headlights, but I was like, nope, we're going to get it fixed. We're going to get it done. We're going to get it accomplished. And he looked at me and was like, that's what I needed to hear. I needed to look you in the eyeballs and know that I have somebody um, back there gonna fix this thing. But it really played um, to a lot of the values that I have, and I wrote down a lot of the values, but these are secondary values off of your sheet, but there's a perseverance value that I have, and this one wasn't on your sheet. There's a competition of yes, we can do it. There's
Hmm.
a mastery of excellence. There's the dependability structure or piece in there, but there's also the whole thing kind of revolved around this team, of being able to put together a team and self-sacrificing ourselves for the good of the company. You know, all of that kind of played together in my values, and ended up kind of defining my career because I was the guy who could always come in and do that.
Yeah.
Some of them fires I created myself, but a lot of times I was cleaning up others' messes. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And, and I love it. It takes a little bit of self-awareness muscle to look at a peak experience from our lives and take the time, again, time,
yeah,
to unpack it so that we get clarity around, oh, there's perseverance. I really
yeah,
love persevering.
yeah,
There's, you listed off these values and
yeah,
they are so much more just by doing this simple exercise. Exercise number one, we have peak experiences all the time. And if
yeah,
we connect the dots, there are themes
yeah,
to our peak
yeah,
experiences.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, that. How about you? Did you have one that a defining moment in your life?
Well, it's funny. I didn't I look at it as in a given week, what's a peak experience? What's
Okay.
something that has been, and we just got back from the New Mexico balloon thing.
Oh wow.
And, you know, the experience was filled with, like, to me, one of my big values is inspiration, to breathe in life,
Yeah.
the inspiring efforts that were taking place to fill the air and see the balloons um, and connections big, and so
Yeah.
we went with a couple friends, and the ability to just talk and hang out and drink coffee and just talk about whatever's going on, and that connectedness and that richness was there. So all of that was peak experience, time with family and friends, that connection. So I think that's kind of how I looked at it, was just I can take anything in my life, and because I've been doing it a while, so I can
Yeah.
take anything and kind of say, okay, wait, and I don't, unfortunately, due to time
Yeah.
constraints, I don't do this enough. But the challenge is just to do it more often. Like, if you look back on a given day or a given week, we are having these peak experiences. And
Yeah.
if we just paused and wrote in a little journal or something, peak experience for this week, what value showed up,
Right.
we can get better at this.
Yeah. Is beauty in your one of your values? I know it's on the
So
list, but I'm just curious because when I imagine that balloon festival, I've seen pictures of it. It seems like it's gorgeous.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's a great question. And I guess if Brene Brown was on the call and Adam Grant, they would be saying beauty fits in your or underneath your umbrella of inspiration.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And if other people were on the call, they'd say, well, yeah, there's a definitely nature or beauty that's on
Yeah.
there. So add that. And so what I noticed over the years is I have this ginormous list of values that's overwhelming to me, that
Yeah.
I either you light touch with it and say, yeah, beauty's on there, or you say inspiration, and then it
Yeah.
all fits into there. And that,
Yeah.
for my little brain, having just a couple now, that I'm
Yeah.
just now taking all my
Yeah.
ones and putting in, is much more. Every morning now, I can get up and just say, okay, here are the values. Let me look for opportunities to, let me search them out in my life today. Much easier than if you have 25 or, a big number.
That's cool because I don't remember what exercise it's like one of the second to the last ones or third to the last ones where you have the list of all the values and then you go through and list your top 10. But
Yeah.
I had the same experience I came up with two right off the bat and I got a third one in there. These are probably really my core values, but all I think I had 18 or 20 off that list, and I had to pare the list down, and I did exactly what you did. It was like, yes, this is a value for me, but it fits with this one. Yes, this is a value for me, but it fits with this one. And I never went through and did the kind of the Venn diagram of them, but there's a hierarchy of values that you can have more in there, but we got one key one, but three or four of them might fit underneath that, right?
Yeah. And that's why I love you. I love that you brought up beauty because that probably does fall into inspiration.
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably the easier way for us to hold these
Yeah.
is to umbrella, have one, two, or three, and then under them have a collection of others.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm going to probably be able to stay in my true identity more easily if I have three instead of 30.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
But I might do that for the next podcast is just take them all and, okay, here are my three, but where do the other ones fit underneath it? Yeah.
Yeah. Because honestly, connection is on my big value list, but I came up with you're going to think it's funny, but I came up with embrace as
Ah,
my main value.
okay.
And it's the opposite of what uh, hyper rational and a lot of protector, the
Right.
leadership circle, all the opposite, because my initial reptilian response to life is to what I call turtle, put my
Yeah.
head in the shell and just,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so my when fear and stress hit me, I'm going to go withdraw.
Right.
So the opposite is embrace, is to
Right.
lean in and embrace. And under the embrace comes all those wonderful things of connection and family and all those other things. So I decided embrace might be the value that I really brings me alive, even though it's the opposite of what that makes sense. It's the opposite of what my fear wants to. It, kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, we talked about this way back when the three postures, yours largely fear driven, you're going to go with, am I lovable?
Yeah.
And your
Yeah.
value that counteracts that, the opposite of it is pure
Love.
altruism and
Yeah.
giving of yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I love the way you put that. That it just you can slowly see the, I guess yin and yang, it probably isn't the right word, but you can see the how polarizing it can be of here's where my true self is and here's where my saboteurs are pulling me away from the joy that I can have in life. And yet you're so vulnerable in that other point. It's you there's an uncomfortableness until you get used to it that you just totally feeling vulnerable and not having that shell. It's almost like you got to run back to the shell of the when you finally get out, run back to the shell that you left behind of the tortoise, right? You
Yeah.
got nothing there. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. The other thing that, which we'll get to, but I wanted to bring up is the idea of, um, let's do it now because I think we're on there now. Number two, the value exercise number two is suppressed values.
Yeah.
And it's literally what drives you crazy. And you said traffic.
Yeah.
And
I-
it's funny that lens you see traffic driving you crazy is a
I-
different lens than I see when traffic drives me crazy.
yeah. The thing that I wrote down about traffic and that just jumped at me, but it's throughout my entire life. There's a bunch of different places was selfish people, which is exactly the opposite of altruism. So, when I see people cutting each other off driving down the road, drives me absolutely crazy. These people are selfish. Either they are didn't get up in time because they wanted more sleep. They didn't do this. Hey, it's my right to cut people off. They're a bunch of losers anyway if they're in the lane and waiting for people. I'm more important. That whole that's just the traffic example. But that when I identify selfish people in my life, it just really goes against my grain. And the opposite to that was altruism. That's how I ended up with that value.
And so what's beautiful that illustrates my point so beautifully because when I see traffic, I don't go with selfish, I go with stupid. Well, and you laugh, but it's because the
That's
hyper
beautiful.
rational, right? The
Yeah.
hyper rational saboteur, everything's about smartness and being right. And it is hitting me when I'm in traffic thinking these people have they not learned? Did they not go to driver's school? Do they not know
Yeah.
you can't, you don't want to drive too close to somebody because you're going to
Yeah.
get, it's all around the smartness frame. So
Interesting.
different people have
Yeah.
different values, and the things that piss us off are going to be, we're both pissed off in traffic. So God
Yeah.
forbid we go on a road trip together. However, we're sitting in the same car with the same traffic, with our brains giving us different messages about why the traffic drives us crazy.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it's a great example for people though, is that I think traffic drives everybody crazy.
Yeah.
I'm sure if we gave the exercise to the person cutting everyone off, they would have their own saboteur going on of the people who they're cutting off and why they're idiots or why they're stupid or why they're whatever they are. They'd have their own. So I love the traffic example. It really
Well,
gets your juices going.
yeah, and not to, to add and unpack that, it's like most of our lives are spent in false identities
Yep.
and listening to the false identity. So everybody in traffic has one of their saboteurs, their false
Yeah.
identities, is taking the wheel and just
Yep.
listening and stewing.
Yep.
Whereas the alternative, the choice to be made is, while I'm in traffic, what's the gift in this? How can I show up as my true identity in this? So for me, it's podcasts, music, things that are going to inspire me.
Yeah.
If I can fuel my brain and go, wow, I'm in traffic for an hour, this is a great gift because I can be inspired.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Different way of looking at it.
I'm the same similar way with podcasts when I'm driving. It's like, okay, now I got a chance to listen to this. I got a chance to listen to this. I can I not fully focus, but I can focus enough, if you
Yeah.
will, on the podcast and I can learn something. I can get something out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's exercise number 2. What drives you crazy? And oftentimes the things that drive us crazy um, are going to be a signal to the opposite being a value.
Right.
I've heard it said, what value is being stepped on? This also applies to conflicts with people. When you're in an argument or somebody's really making you angry, it's often because they've stepped on one of your values.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
For
this
sure.
comes up with that as well.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. I think of a conflict going on in my life right now, and that the it's totally stepping on altruism. It's totally and this is the conflict that I have with this person. Um, is they're totally stepping on my values. Um, yeah, that whole selfishness that I see with this person
Yeah.
steps on altruism all the time. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other, I guess oftentimes I get stuck with in conflict with others with intransigence, which is a fancy word for rigidity of opinion, where there's no, and we see
Oh,
that a lot in our culture, right?
yeah, we
And
do.
one of my values is whimsy and openness, the idea of just, lightness and wonderment and
Right.
awe. And I mean, that's an inspiration and whimsy. So I'm just trying to work through that. But I mean, those values show up. And the opposite of that is just, you know, rigid and holding your fists tight and my way or the highway. And yeah. So
Yeah. I gosh, we do a whole podcast on that.
yeah.
'Cause
Right.
there's a lot of it going on
Yeah.
in our country today. And I think in the world today, everything I read from abroad, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's see. One more. Let's tackle value exercise number 3, must-haves. Um, and let me see if that here's what I put in the sheet. Beyond food, shelter, and community, what are the needs that you must have in your life to feel fulfilled? What, yeah, what
It's
came
funny,
up for you?
I did this in two different so I did the exercise kind of twice. I went back through it a couple times. Um, in my first being a dyslexic, I think I skimmed it the first time, but I'll give you both sides. Um, the first thing that I wrote down were kind of values of harmony, teamwork, and
Mm.
overcoming long odds. I don't know that's a value, but those are the things that I must have in my life. I like harmony in my life. I like the ability to have teamwork in my life, and I like the ability of overcoming long odds. You know, that those things,
Perseverance.
perseverance. Yeah,
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 there it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The most passionate sports stories for me are the Cinderella stories. It's those teams that are the underdogs that come from out of nowhere and beat the big dog. And
Yeah, it's forming in our lives today. Seattle Mariners versus the Dodgers, maybe, right?
well, hopefully, I'm
Yeah,
hoping.
hopefully. Yeah,
I'm hoping
exactly.
the M's haven't gotten there. That Toronto
Yeah,
played well last night, but yeah, I'm
yeah, yeah,
hoping. But that
yeah.
growing up as a not growing up, but being a Washington State Cougars fan, that I mean, long odds. It's a small school out in the middle of a wheat field, but when I think about those teams, the teams that are the Cinderella stories, you never hear about selfishness on those teams.
Mm.
You look at a team that really plays for each other, self-sacrificing for each other, and it doesn't matter what sport you pick. It's that self-sacrifice, that love, that bond that those teams have for one another. Um, that make them, to me, make them so successful, and that's what makes that story to me so special, is that perseverance, but also that self-sacrifice that goes with it.
Yeah.
Right.
No names on the jerseys.
No names on the jerseys. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this one for me, what are the needs that you must have in your life to be fulfilled? I think it's that embrace connectivity, that I'm an introvert, but when I go out and meet the world with an embrace and with connection, I feel my energy goes way up. I feel great. It's almost, and so that's one indicator of your values is what gives you positive energy, what gives you juice, and
Yeah.
when you see it or when you experience it, it's giving you that kind of energy.
Yeah.
And I love when, people are curious and when they show up with a little bit of winsomeness, a little bit of gentleness and
Yeah.
fun lovingness. It's just such a great space. So then I go, wow, that's what I love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a need of mine. And then I guess the follow up was the second part of the values exercise number three, the must haves, was what accomplishments do you think you must have in your lifetime so that you will consider your life to be filling and satisfied? And
Well, go
yeah,
ahead.
what were you going to say? You're
I was
laughing.
gonna say this is where the dyslexic came in. I did the first
Oh,
part first, and then this this was the second part. But fire away.
well, I just noticed that there's kind of two sex
Yeah.
parts that can't, they're similar. I mean, to me, when I read the second one, my greatest accomplishment is just one of my accomplishments is my kids, and
Yeah.
how they really embrace each other in life and
Yeah.
their faith.
Yeah.
And that's just so inspiring to me. So
Yeah.
I just used two of my values, right, in a
Yeah.
sentence. And I just come alive by, my daughter, shared with us recently something she wrote, and it just was so inspiring and so whimsical, and so it's all there. And I just go,
Yeah.
oh, that's an accomplishment. Is this lady out there in the world is showing up to the world in this way that really makes my values come alive.
I and I think I've met your daughter. I don't think I've met your two sons. I don't think I might have met Ben. But you and I have talked enough about your family that, I mean, when you talk about it, I can hear the love that you have for your kids, but I can also hear the love that they have for each other.
Mm,
And that
yeah.
to me is, you don't, that's unique in a family. We think it should be there all the time, but it's so unique in a family to have that. My wife's family has that.
Mm,
The love that she and her siblings have for one another. It's just it's so tight. It's so cool.
yeah.
Um, and I wrote down a similar thing. I said a solid family. I mean, that was one of the needs that I've got, and I'm playing off of yours, but it's that love that Nikki and Michael and I have for one another. We don't, unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to have multiple kids, but yeah, yeah,
And
it,
would you say what value is family part of that value, or is it love, or is it what combination of those? What is it?
it's. I would say it's family and love, but I wrote this down in a different exercise. One of the values that my wife instilled in the family was um, we treat each other with kindness and respect.
Mm,
Anytime we would get into conflict with one another, that statement would always come back in the family household. We treat each other with kindness and respect, and I think that is a family value that we carried on,
nice.
and it opened up the space to love each other, right? Um,
And
and
what a great illustration as we kind of end today's call in the idea that this is me and my values.
yeah,
And then there's a corporate we and
yeah,
our values that we create ideally. I mean, I would share one of my keys when the kids were little was creating a family statement and a family set of values.
right,
And that lens creates a space where a lot of beautiful things show up
yeah,
in our lives individually and corporately.
yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
perfect. That's
Yeah.
perfect.
So next time we're going to shoot for seeing 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, keep going. We'll start at value number 4,
Okay,
and just keep
love it.
at it, because I think that this process is, I often give this whole document to my clients and say, don't do all of them. Just read through them and pick one that sounds like fun, and
Yeah.
I think we're just going to, for the purposes of our goal, is to try to give people a tool chest to help them discover their values. We'll just keep going through it and process it.
Good.
So good.
Sounds great. There's a lot to go through and a lot to digest here, but
Yes.
for people doing the exercise at home, it's a journey worth taking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. And I will try to remind myself to put this document in the show notes. But yeah, good.
Cool. Awesome.
Always a joy.
I love it, Drew.
More to
Thank you.
follow.
Yeah. See ya.